Hey, let me ask you about that. You were in the last season of The Virginian and the last season of Bonanza.
I killed them both.
What the heck? Hi, I'm Rob Word. Welcome to A Word on Westerns. Today we are fortunate to have a multi-talented actor, director, producer join us today to talk about his Westerns. He made a lot of them. He came up as a child actor. He was the voice of Johnny Quest. We're going to talk about his work on The Virginian and Bonanza and other films. So please give a big hand to Tim Matheson.
Thank you so much for having me here and for everybody coming out. And it's a pleasure and an honor for me to be here.
I remember when I was a wannabe cowboy, and I guess I still am, but I saw you and Kurt Russell, I think it was on the Merv Griffin show.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And you guys came on dressed as your characters from The Quest. And I go, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen, and you guys were having so much fun.
There was no better person to work with and who's done some great Westerns as well as Kurt Russell. And, you know, it was sort of at the beginning. I mean, I had done a lot of different shows at that point. The Virginian, Bonanza, I did 2 Western pilots at Universal, Lock, Stock, and Barrel, and then Hitched with Sally Fields. But Kurt was actually such a mentor, and he was like my younger brother, but in many ways an older brother, because he sort of taught me all the things that he had learned as a kid actor. And things like, you know, he just said, boy, you work so hard, because I was studying acting at the time. And he said, you know, you give it your all in rehearsal and everything, and every run through, just relax and just, you know, walk through those rehearsals, just relax, and then save it all for camera. So he was always giving me a lot of information and advice about
well, acting. He had done as a kid that series, Travels of Jamie McPheeters, that I remember.
Right.
And O'Hurley and Charles Bronson was the trail guide.
Right,
for that.
His first movie was with Elvis Presley, I think. I mean, he'd done everything, and is the coolest guy, and he was a professional athlete. So he was very cool about all the techniques, and very free and willing to give you know, that information to me.
And how did you get cast then for The Quest?
Well, it was the best it's a typical actor story. It was the best and worst day of my life. I went to an audition in the morning for some pilot where they'd already cast an actor who nobody's ever heard of since. And he proceeded, I was supposed to rehearse with him for the second lead or something in the show. And he proceeded to tell me exactly how to read every line, what to say, how to say it, what to do. It was like, oh my God, it was just the worst experience. And then that afternoon, I was called over to, I think it was Renee Valente, who was the head of Warner's casting. And in her office, and then all of a sudden in comes Kurt. So we're both sitting there, we don't know what we're doing there. I guess we figure we're both up for the same part. And then we go inside, and she said, no, you know, David Gerber wants to have you guys star in a Western series for us. And it was like, okay. A couple of unemployed actors were going, okay, great. And so from auditioning for some terrible pilot and having a terrible experience in the morning to the afternoon, getting offered this great opportunity to do this show, especially with somebody as great as Kurt, it was a dream come true.
Well, that was such an interesting concept for a series, borrowing something from The Searchers.
The Searchers,
where
yeah.
Kidnapped, a brother and a sister kidnapped by Indians. The brother is Kurt. You're the other brother, raised back east as a doctor.
Right.
And you get together, hook up in the pilot episode, the TV movie. I guess the numbers were so good in that, they said, let's spin this off.
Yes.
To hunt for your sister, which was a wonderful premise for the show.
Yeah, it was great. You know, it was in a sense an anthology show every week, and we had so many wonderful people. We had Amanda Blake on there, you know, Morgan Woodward, and it was just, we had so many wonderful people. Dan O'Hurley, Michael, his brother, directed an episode. Keenan Wynn, whose son Tracy Keenan Wynn wrote the pilot.
Oh, I remember Alex Corden won as Buffalo Hunter.
Right.
Oh, that was good.
Eric Estrada. I mean, just there were so many people that were on it. I mean, because it was really one of the last Westerns that was on the air, as I recall. And so we had them all come through.
Well, David Gerber had been doing the anthology Police Story at the time, which was a big hit for Columbia, and then the Quest, I guess he had clout to do what he wanted, which was a Western.
Yeah.
You'd already come from a couple of Western series, of Virginian and Bonanza. In the Bonanza opening, I know that David Canary must have been so pissed off because it's got Michael Landon riding in on a horse, and it's got Lorne Greene probably standing next to a horse in the opening credits. And here comes David Canary in a buckboard, but then you show up on a horse and you do some running Pony Express mount. You know?
That probably wasn't me.
Well, there's some hot stuff, though.
Yeah,
All
thank
of
you,
us want to be cowboys.
Well, you know, Kurt and I used to stand around the back lot over at then the Burbank Studios, but Warner Brothers, because it was for Columbia. And you know, in those days there was always a back lot Western Street, you know, and we would stand around on a Friday night, we'd be working late, and we're going, I can't believe we're getting paid for this. I mean, this is what we did. I grew up in Burbank. This is what we did every Friday night anyway, and now we're getting paid for this, running around shooting guns and, you know, and climbing around, pretending, you know, it was just a dream come true.
Kirk, it seemed like to me, because he was raised by the Native Americans, he got to do most of the action, and you're like helping some pregnant woman.
Yeah, I'm always delivering a baby or something. Yeah, it's great.
Was that frustrating, or?
A little, but I mean, you know, it was just so much fun to work with those guys, and all our buddies were the stunt guys, and you know, they just show us how to do this trick or that trick, and let us do the stunts. So it was great. I mean, because when I started acting, I hadn't really studied anything, and when I went into the Virginian, and I got the Virginian because I'd played a character on Adam 12 who was a guy from Texas, a kid from Texas who had gotten high on LSD, stolen a horse, and was going to ride it back to Texas from LA. So the Universal executives liked what I did, and so they said, well, put him in the Virginian. So I got added to the cast of the Virginian, and that was really sort of that was the beginning of my training. And of course, the Wranglers all taught me how to chew tobacco.
And drink. It was universal, right?
Yeah, and they didn't tell me not to swallow the tobacco, but I learned that quickly.
Now, one of our favorites, and he was a dear friend, Doug McClure on the Virginian, Trampas. What was he like? Well,
Doug was a character, and you know, he at that point he kind of liked to party a little bit, and I do remember a few days I'd come to work and Doug wasn't there, and but he just basically said one afternoon, he said that, you know, he was going to be busy that night. He said, let the kid play this part. You know, I was the kid, so he said, it wasn't a big episode for him, so he said, look, I'm not doing this. Let the kid play that part. Let the kid play this scene. And so he could have the next day off. Mm-hmm. So it worked out well for both of us, I think.
Well, that was like making a movie, too, the Virginian, 90-minute show like
90 minutes in 8 days, usually with just one camera. The trick with Westerns, as I think we all know, is that there was so much stock footage of riding into town. So you do a master shot with 2 or 3 cameras of riding left to right, right to left. You'd shoot it up in Northern California, shoot it up, you know, on some ranch somewhere in the neighborhood. And so you never had to reshoot that stuff. And we always wore the same clothes. So you'd have this bank of stock footage that you didn't have to reshoot. So basically we only had to do the dialogue scenes and the ranch scenes or the town scenes. So that was the only way you could do 90-minute show in 8 days. It was insane, but how fast they did it.
Well, Jim Drury, so many great guys on that show, and again, because it was like a movie, they treated it, NBC, and promoted it like a feature. They always had big guest stars, and even the last season that you were in. In fact, let me ask you about that. You were in the last season of The Virginian and the last season of Bonanza.
I killed them both.
What the heck?
I do remember the last day of Bonanza that Michael Landon came down to the set, and he wasn't even shooting that day as an actor. He came down to the set and said, I just have some news for us, and I want you to, everybody know, because the cast and the crew was all very much like his family, and he was the father figure on the show, and with Lauren aside, but, and he told everyone, he said, you know, this is our last day of shooting for this show that's been on 14 years, and he gave a very somber speech. Then when the day's work was about to be done, I think we'd had one shot left, Michael comes back with an NBC or KNBC, then local news crew, and spoke to the camera on the set. He just was saying, this is the last episode of Bonanza, and Michael landed here. I just want to sign off, and this is how the show's going to end. And he'd been rigged with a pull line, a jerk line. So somebody stepped up and fired a shotgun at him, and it just blew him back through the door, and that was the end. Michael was one of the most talented, funny, amazing, wonderful people that I've ever worked with, because he was writing the show, he was directing the show, and he was acting in the show, and he was the mayor of that, of the show.
And he took that crew with him to do Little House.
Yeah, he was great, and never missed a beat. I mean, he was just so sharp and couldn't have been sweeter, couldn't have been funnier, and more gracious.
My name is Rob Word, and we love bringing these programs to you. We've got a lot more scheduled coming up. We post a new one every single week, and we want you to subscribe, like, and share. Thanks for watching.